So, secret number 2 is, what is sustainability? What are we aiming for? And there are 2 ways of looking at this. The first one's the way most people think about sustainability, and that's about using less stuff, or getting more out of each amount of stuff, so, which we call eco-efficiency. So when a car is quoted as doing a certain number of miles to the gallon, the miles is the amount of use you get out of each gallon of fuel, and it's assumed the more miles you can get out of each gallon of fuel, the better. And that's all well and good. But there are a number of problems. Toyota Prius, here, technologically advanced car, most aerodynamic production car, has all these technologies, the famous hybrid engine, which uses the electrical engine when that's efficient, uses the petrol engine when that's more efficient. Even when you brake, it takes some of the energy out of the wheels and regenerates that back into the battery. But this will only give you about twice the miles per gallon as a standard petrol Ford Focus of the same size. People who have calculated how far we would need to improve in terms of eco-efficiency have said that we need to hit at least factor 4, so 4 times improvement, if we're to be sustainable as the world is now. But with all the populations of China and India starting as they have the right to become more well off, then we've got a situation that we have to factor all that in as well. Some people say factor 10 should be our target, yet the best we're doing here is factor 2. The other main problem we have is if you drove one of these quite a lot, you'd probably save a couple of £100 a year in fuel, which is how a lot of this is marketed. You know, go green, save money, you see it all the time. But that depends on what you spend that extra money on. Because if you fly to New York, which only takes a couple of £100, you then double the carbon emissions that you had in your original ordinary petrol car. And that scales up to the whole economy. We've never actually yet been able to decouple the carbon emissions and GDP. They go up nicely together, and that's a massive challenge. We call that the rebound effect. So you think you're benefiting, but actually you're just moving the problem somewhere else, and maybe even making it worse. But there is another way of thinking about sustainability, and I'd like you all to breathe in and breathe out. And that's the answer. Because what you've done there is breathe in oxygen, breathe out carbon dioxide. Somewhere else, obviously outside this room, a plant is going to take in your carbon dioxide and turn it back into oxygen, and everything moves in a nice cycle. The plant uses renewable energy to do that, and all that is done in an atmosphere which is maintained so we can live in it and we're not going to keel over and die. So, the second way of thinking about sustainability is to try and emulate those natural cycles in natural ecosystems. Nothing is waste. Everything goes in cycles, is continually cycled in the economy. All energy is renewable, and nothing is toxic. There's a little maxim you can say, which is solar cyclic safe. Here's a product which is close to solar cyclic safe. It's sheep's wool insulation. The sheep produce this from grass, which is a natural material, so part of a natural cycle. The grass grew using solar power, and that's what the sheep used then to produce the wool. And then it's biodegradable at the end of its cycle, and it's not toxic in any way. I used to demonstrate how safe it was by rubbing it on my face, but I always did it before I remembered I had a beard, and then I'd end up giving the presentation with half a fleece on me. Going back to the light bulb, that is verboten under this way of thinking, because the compact fluorescent tubes have a small amount of mercury in them, which is toxic. And basically, the ecosystem model says no toxic materials whatsoever. The problem with this model is, can we get enough energy to make all that happen? Now, some of it happens naturally. You know, if you recycle a steel or aluminium can, it takes a small fraction of the energy to produce one from raw material. So you get some efficiencies in it, but we still probably have to cut the amount of stuff that we use, of physical stuff or energy, in order to make it sustainable. So, the second secret is follow that ecosystem of model as of sustainability as your ultimate aim. But where you can't, where you fall short, we should be efficient by a factor of 10.